Section 10 of the Laws of Ecclesiastical Polity, Book 1 by Richard Hooker. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. How reason doth lead men unto the making of human laws, whereby politic societies are governed, and to agreement about laws whereby the fellowship or communion of independent societies standeth. That which hitherto we have set down is, I hope, sufficient to show their brutishness, which imagine that religion and virtue are only as men will account of them, that we might make as much account, if we would, of the contrary without any harm unto ourselves, and that in nature they are as indifferent one as the other. We see then how nature itself teacheth laws and statutes to live by. The laws which have been hitherto mentioned do bind men absolutely, even as they are men, although they have never any settled fellowship, never any solemn agreement amongst themselves what to do or not to do. But forasmuch as we are not by ourselves sufficient to furnish ourselves with competent store of things needful for such a life as our nature doth desire, a life fit for the dignity of man, therefore to supply those defects and imperfections which are in us, living single and solely by ourselves, we are naturally induced to seek communion and fellowship with others. This was the cause of men's uniting themselves, at the first, in politic societies, which societies could not be without government, nor government without a distinct kind of law from that which hath been already declared. Two foundations there are which bear up public societies, the one a natural inclination whereby all men desire sociable life and fellowship, the other an order expressly or secretly agreed upon touching the manner of their union in living together. The latter is that which we call the law of a commonwealth, the very soul of a politic body, the parts whereof are by law animated, held together, and set on work in such actions as the common good requireth. Laws politic, ordained for external order and regiment amongst men, are never framed as they should be, unless presuming the will of man to be inwardly obstinate, rebellious, and averse from all obedience unto the sacred laws of his nature. In a word, unless presuming man to be, in regard of his depraved mind, little better than a wild beast, they do accordingly provide, notwithstanding, so to frame his outward actions, that they be no hindrance unto the common good for which societies are instituted. Unless they do this, they are not perfect. It resteth, therefore, that we consider how nature findeth out such laws of government as serve to direct even nature depraved to a right end. All men desire to lead in this world a happy life. That life is led most happily wherein all virtue is exercised without impediment or let. The Apostle, in exhorting men to contentment, although they have in this world no more than very bare food and raiment, giveth us thereby to understand that those who are even the lowest of things necessary, that if we should be stripped of all those things without which we might possibly be, yet these must be left, that destitution in these is such an impediment, as till it be removed suffereth not the mind of man to admit any other care. For this cause God first assigned Adam maintenance of life, and then appointed him a law to observe. For this cause, after men began to grow to a number, the first thing we read they gave themselves unto was the tilling of the earth and the feeding of cattle. Having by this means whereon to live, the principal actions of their life afterward are noted by the exercise of their religion. True it is that the kingdom of God must be the first thing in our purposes and desires, but inasmuch as a righteous life presupposeth life, inasmuch as to live virtuously it is impossible except we live. Therefore the first impediment which naturally we endeavour to remove is penury and want of things without which we cannot live. Unto life many impediments are necessary. More, if we seek, as all men naturally do, such a life as hath in it joy, comfort, delight, and pleasure. To this end we see how quickly sundry arts mechanical were found out in the very prime of the world. As things of greatest necessity are always first provided for, so things of greatest dignity are most accounted of by all such as judge rightly. Although therefore riches be a thing which every man wisheth, yet no man of judgment can esteem it better to be rich than wise, virtuous, and religious. If we be both, or either of these, it is not because we are so born, for into the world we come as empty of the one as of the other, as naked in mind as we are in body. Both which necessities of man had at the first no other helps and supplies than only domestical, such as that which the prophet implieth, saying, Can a mother forget her child? Such as that which the prophet implieth, saying, Can a mother forget her child? Such as that which the apostle mentioneth, saying, He that careth not for his own is worse than an infidel. Such as that concerning Abraham, Abraham will command his sons and his household after him that they keep the way of the Lord. But neither that which we learn of ourselves nor that which others teach us can prevail where wickedness and malice have taken deep root. If therefore, when there was but as yet one only family in the world, no means of instruction, human or divine, could prevent effusion of blood, how could it be chosen but that when families were multiplied and increased upon earth, after separation, each providing for itself, envy, strife, contention, and violence must grow amongst them? For hath not nature furnished man with wit and valour, as it were with armour, which may be used as well unto extreme evil as good? Yea, were they not used by the rest of the world unto evil? Unto the contrary only by Seth, Enoch, and those few, the rest in that line. We all make complaint of the iniquity of our times, not unjustly, for the days are evil, but compared with those times wherein there were no civil societies, with those wherein there was as yet no manner of public regiment established, with those times wherein there were not above 8 righteous persons living upon the face of the earth, and we have surely good cause to think that God hath blessed us exceedingly, and hath made us behold most happy days. To take away all such mutual grievances, injuries, and wrongs, there was no way but only by growing unto composition and agreement amongst themselves, by ordaining some kind of government public, and by yielding themselves subject thereunto, that unto whom they granted authority to rule and govern, by them the peace, tranquillity, and happy estate of the rest might be procured. Men always knew that when force and injury were offered, they might be defenders of themselves. They knew that howsoever men may seek their own commodity, yet if this were done with injury unto others, it was not to be suffered, but by all men and by all means to be withstood. Finally, they knew that no man might in reason take upon him to determine his own right, and according to his own determination proceed in maintenance thereof, inasmuch as every man is towards himself, and them whom he greatly affecteth, partial, and therefore that strifes and troubles would be endless, except they gave their common consent all to be ordered by some whom they should agree upon. Without which consent there were no reason that one man should take upon him to be lord or judge over another, because, although there be, according to the opinion of some very great and judicious man, a kind of natural right in the noble, wise, and virtuous, to govern them which are of servile disposition, nevertheless, for manifestation of this their right, and men's more peaceable contentment on both sides, the assent of them who are to be governed seemeth necessary. To fathers within their private families nature hath given a supreme power, for which cause we see throughout the world, even from the foundation thereof, all men have ever been taken as lords and lawful kings in their own houses. Howbeit, over a whole grand multitude, having no such dependency upon any one, and consisting of so many families as every politic society in the world doth, impossible it is that any should have complete lawful power, but by consent of men, or immediate appointment of God. Because, not having the natural superiority of fathers, their power must needs be either usurped, and then unlawful, or if lawful, then either granted or consented unto by them over whom they exercise the same, or else given extraordinarily from God, unto whom all the world is subject. It is no improbable opinion, therefore, which the arch-philosopher was of, that, as the chiefest person in every household was always as it were a king, so when numbers of households joined themselves in civil societies together, kings were the first kind of governors amongst them. Which is also, as it seemeth, the reason why the name of father continued still in them, who of fathers were made rulers, as also the ancient custom of governors to do as Melchizedek, and being kings to exercise the office of priests, which fathers did at the first, grew perhaps by the same occasion, howbeit this is not the only kind of regiment that hath been received in the world. The inconveniences of one kind have caused sundry other to be devised, so that, in a word, all public regiment, of what kind soever, seemeth evidently to have risen from deliberate advice, consultation, and composition between men, judging it convenient and behoveful, there being no impossibility in nature considered by itself, but that men might have lived without any public regiment. Howbeit, the corruption of our nature being presupposed, we may not deny but that the law of nature doth now require of necessity some kind of regiment, so that to bring things unto the first course they were in, and utterly to take away all kind of public government in the world, were apparently to overturn the whole world. The case of man's nature, standing therefore as it doth, some kind of regiment the law of nature doth require, yet the kinds thereof being many, nature tieth not to any one, but leaveth the choice as a thing arbitrary. At the first, when some certain kind of regiment was once approved, it may be that nothing was then further thought upon for the matter of governing, but all permitted unto their wisdom and discretion which were to rule, till by experience they found this for all parts very inconvenient, so as the thing which they had devised for a remedy did indeed but increase the sore which it should have cured. They saw that to live by one man's will became the cause of all men's misery. This constrained them to come unto laws, wherein all men might see their duties beforehand, and know the penalties of transgressing them. If things be simply good or evil, and withal universally so acknowledged, there needs no new law to be made for such things. The first kind therefore of things appointed by laws human containeth whatsoever, being in itself naturally good or evil, is notwithstanding more secret than it can be discerned by every man's present conceit, without some deeper discourse and judgment. In which discourse, because there is difficulty and possibility many ways to err, unless such things were set down by laws, many would be ignorant of their duties, which now are not, and many that know what they should do would nevertheless dissemble it, and to excuse themselves pretend ignorance and simplicity, which now they cannot. And because the greatest part of men are such as prefer their own private good before other things, even that good which is essential before whatsoever is most divine, and for that labour of doing good, together with the pleasure arising from the contrary, doth make men for the most part slower to the one and proner to the other, than that duty prescribed them by law can prevail sufficiently with them. Therefore unto laws that men do make for the benefit of men, it hath seemed always needful to add rewards, which may more allure unto good than any hardness deterreth from it, and punishments, which may more deter from evil than any sweetness thereto allureth. Wherein, as the generality is natural, virtue rewardable, and vice punishable, so the particular determination of the reward or punishment belongeth unto them by whom laws are made. Theft is naturally punishable, but the kind of punishment is positive, and such lawful as men shall think with discretion convenient by law to appoint. In laws, that which is natural bindeth universally, that which is positive not so. To let go those positive kind of laws which men impose upon themselves, as by vow unto God, contract with men or such like, somewhat it will make unto our purpose a little more fully to consider what things are incident unto the making of the positive laws for the government of them that live united in public society. Laws do not only teach what is good, but they enjoin it. They have in them a certain constraining force, and to constrain men unto anything inconvenient doth seem unreasonable. Most requisite therefore it is that to devise laws which all men shall be forced to obey, none but wise men be admitted. Laws are matters of principal consequence. Men of common capacity and but ordinary judgment are not able, for how should they, to discern what things are fittest for each kind and state of regiment. We cannot be ignorant how much our obedience unto laws dependeth upon this point. Let a man, though never so justly, oppose himself unto them that are disordered in their ways, and what one among them commonly doth not stomach at such contradiction, storm at reproof, and hate such as would reform them. Notwithstanding, even they which brook at worst that men should tell them of their duties, when they are told the same by law, think very well and reasonably of it. For why? They presume that the law doth speak with all indifferency, that the law hath no side respect to their persons, that the law is, as it were, an oracle proceeding from wisdom and understanding. Howbeit laws do not take their constraining force from the quality of such as devise them, but from that power which doth give them the strength of laws. That which we spake before concerning the power of government must here be applied unto the power of making laws whereby to govern, which power God hath over all, and by the natural law whereunto he hath made all subject, the lawful power of making laws, to command whole politic societies of men, belongeth so properly unto the same entire societies, that for any prince or potentate of what kind soever upon earth to exercise the same of himself, and not either by express commission immediately and personally received from God, or else by authority derived at the first from their consent, upon whose persons they impose laws, it is no better than mere tyranny. Laws they are not therefore which public approbation hath not made so, but approbation not only they give who personally declare their assent by voice, sign, or act, but also when others do it in their names, by right, originally at the least derived from them, as in parliaments, councils, and the like assemblies, although we be not personally ourselves present, notwithstanding our assent is by reason of other agents there in our behalf. And what we do by others, no reason but that it should stand as our deed, no less effectually to bind us than if ourselves had done it in person. In many things assent is given, they that give it not imagining they do so, because the manner of their assenting is not apparent. As for example, when an absolute monarch commandeth his subjects that which seemeth good in his own discretion, hath not his edict the force of a law, whether they approve or dislike it? Again, that which hath been received long since, and is by custom now established, we keep as a law which we may not transgress, yet what consent was ever thereunto sought or required at our hands? Of this point, therefore, we are to note that since men naturally have no full and perfect power to command whole politic multitudes of men, therefore, utterly without our consent, we could in such sort be at no man's commandment living. And to be commanded we do consent, when that society, whereof we are part, hath at any time before consented, without revoking the same after by like universal agreement. Wherefore, as any man's deed past is good as long as himself continueth, so the act of a public society of men done 500 years since standeth as theirs who presently are of these same societies, because corporations are immortal. We were then alive in our predecessors, and they in their successors do live still. Laws, therefore human, of what kind soever, are available by consent. If here it be demanded how it comes to pass, that this, being common unto all laws which are made, there should be found even in good laws so great variety as there is, we must note the reason hereof to be these sundry particular ends, whereunto the different disposition of that subject or matter for which laws are provided causeth them to have a special respect in making laws. A law there is mentioned among the Grecians, whereof Pittacus is reported to have been the author, and by that law it was agreed that he which being overcome with drink did then strike any man should suffer punishment double as much as if he had done the same thing being sober. No man could ever have thought this reasonable, that had intended thereby only to punish the injury committed according to the gravity of the fact, for who knoweth not that harm advisedly done is naturally less pardonable and therefore worthy of sharper punishment? But forasmuch as none did so usually this way offend as men in that case, which they wittingly fell into, even because they would be so much the more freely outrageous, it was for their public good, where such disorder was grown, to frame a positive law for remedy thereof accordingly. To this appertain those known laws of making laws, as that lawmakers must have an eye to that place where, and to the people amongst whom, that one kind of laws cannot serve for all kinds of regiment, that where the multitude beareth sway, laws that shall tend to the preservation of that state must make common smaller officers to go by lot, for fear of strife and division likely to arise, by reason that ordinary qualities sufficing for discharge of such offices, they could not but by many be desired, and so with danger contended for, and not missed without grudge and discontentment. Whereas at an uncertain lot none can find themselves grieved on whomsoever it lighteth. Contrariwise the greatest, whereof but few are capable, to pass by popular election, that neither the people may envy such as have those honours, inasmuch as themselves bestow them, and that the chiefest may be kindled with desire to exercise all parts of rare and beneficial virtue, knowing they shall not lose their labour by growing in fame and estimation among the people. If the helm of chief government be in the hands of a few of the wealthiest, that then laws providing for continuance thereof must make the punishment of contumely and wrong, offered unto any of the common sort, sharp and grievous, that so the evil may be prevented whereby the rich are most likely to bring themselves into hatred with the people, who are not wont to take so great offence when they are excluded from honours and offices, as when their persons are contumeliously trodden upon. In other kinds of regiment, the like is observed concerning the difference of positive laws, which to be everywhere the same is impossible, and against their nature. Now, as the learned in the laws of this land observe, that our statutes sometimes are only the affirmation or ratification of that which by common law was held before, so here it is not to be omitted that generally all laws human, which are made for the ordering of politic societies, be either such as establish some duty, whereunto all men by the law of reason did before stand bound, or else such as make that a duty now which before was none. The one sort we may for distinction's sake call mixedly, and the other merely human. That which plain or necessary reason bindeth men unto, may be, in sundry considerations, expedient to be ratified by human law. For example, if confusion of blood in marriage, the liberty of having many wives at once, or any other the like corrupt and unreasonable custom, doth happen to have prevailed far, and to have gotten the upper hand of right reason with the greatest part, so that no way is left to rectify such foul disorder without prescribing by law the same things which reason necessarily doth enforce, it is not perceived that so it doth. Or if many be grown unto that which the apostle did lament in some, concerning whom he writeth, saying that even what things they naturally know, in those very things, as beasts void of reason, they corrupted themselves. Or if there be no such special accident, yet forasmuch as the common sort are led by the sway of their sensual desires, and therefore do more shun sin for the sensible evils which follow it amongst men, than for any kind of sentence which reason doth pronounce against it, this very thing is cause sufficient why duties belonging unto each kind of virtue, albeit the law of reason teach them, should notwithstanding be prescribed even by human law. Which law in this case we term mixed, because the matter whereunto it bindeth is the same which reason necessarily doth require at our hands, and from the law of reason it differeth in the matter of binding only. For whereas men before stood bound in conscience to do as the law of reason teacheth, they are now, by virtue of human law, become constrainable, and if they outwardly transgress, punishable. As for laws which are merely human, the matter of them is anything which reason doth but probably teach to be fit and convenient, so that till such time as law hath passed amongst men about it, of itself it bindeth no man. One example whereof may be this: lands are by human law in some places, after the owner's decease, divided unto all his children, in some all descend to the eldest son. If the law of reason did necessarily require but one of these two to be done, they which by law have received the other should be subject to that heavy sentence which denounceth against all that decree wicked, unjust, and unreasonable things woe. Whereas now, whichsoever be received, there is no law of reason transgressed, because there is probable reason why either of them may be expedient, and for either of them more than probable reason there is not to be found. Laws, whether mixedly or merely human, are made by politic societies, some only as those societies are civilly united, some as they are spiritually joined, and make such a body as we call the Church. Of laws human in this latter kind we are to speak in the third book following. Let it therefore suffice thus far to have touched the force wherewith Almighty God hath graciously endued our nature, and thereby enabled the same to find out both those laws which all men generally are forever bound to observe, and also such as are most fit for their behoof, who lead their lives in any ordered state of government. Now, besides that law which simply concerneth men as men, and that which belongeth unto them, as they are men linked with others in some form of politic society, there is a third kind of law which toucheth all such several bodies politic, so far forth as one of them hath public commerce with another. And this third is the law of nations. Between men and beasts there is no possibility of sociable communion, because the wellspring of that communion is a natural delight which man hath to transfuse from himself into others, and to receive from others into himself, especially those things wherein the excellency of his kind doth most consist. The chiefest instrument of human communion, therefore, is speech, because thereby we impart mutually one to another the conceits of our reasonable understanding. And for that cause, seeing beasts are not hereof capable, forasmuch as with them we can use no such conference, they being in degree, although above other creatures on earth, to whom nature hath denied sense, yet lower than to be sociable companions of man, to whom nature hath given reason. It is of Adam said, that amongst the beasts he found not for himself any meet companion. Civil society doth more content the nature of man than any private kind of solitary living, because in society this good of mutual participation is so much larger than otherwise. Herewith notwithstanding we are not satisfied, but we covet, if it might be, to have a kind of society and fellowship even with all mankind. Which thing Socrates, intending to signify, professed himself a citizen not of this or that commonwealth, but of the world. And an effect of that very natural desire in us, a manifest token that we wish after a sort a universal fellowship with all men, appeareth by the wonderful delight men have, some to visit foreign countries, some to discover nations not heard of in former ages, we all to know the affairs and dealings of other people, yet to be in league of amity with them. And this not only for traffic's sake, or to the end that when many are confederated each may make other the more strong, but for such cause also as moved the Queen of Sheba to visit Solomon, and in a word because nature doth presume that how many men there are in the world, so many gods as it were there are, or at leastwise such as should be towards men, touching laws which are to serve men in this behalf, even as those laws of reason which, man retaining his original integrity had been sufficient to direct each particular person in all his affairs and duties, are not sufficient, but require the access of other laws now, that man and his offspring are grown thus corrupt and sinful. Again, as those laws of polity and regiment which would have served men living in public society, together with that harmless disposition which then they should have had, are not able now to serve, when men's iniquity is so hardly restrained within any tolerable bounds. In like manner, the national laws of natural commerce between societies of that former and better quality might have been other than now, when nations are so prone to offer violence, injury, and wrong. Hereupon hath grown in every of these three kinds that distinction between primary and secondary laws, the one grounded upon sincere, the other built upon depraved nature. Primary laws of nations are such as concern embassage, such as belong to the courteous entertainment of foreigners and strangers, such as serve for commodious traffic and the like. Secondary laws in the same kind are such as this present unquiet world is most familiarly acquainted with, I mean laws of arms, which yet are much better known than kept. But what matter the law of nations doth contain, I omit to search. The strength and virtue of that law are such that no particular nation can lawfully prejudice the same by any their several laws and ordinances, more than a man by his private resolutions, the law of the whole commonwealth or state wherein he liveth. For as civil law, being the act of the whole body politic, doth therefore overrule each several part of the same body, so there is no reason that any one commonwealth of itself should, to the prejudice of another, annihilate that whereupon the whole world hath agreed. For which cause the Lacedaemonians, forbidding all access of strangers into their coasts, are in that respect both by Josephus and Theodoret deservedly blamed, as being enemies to that hospitality which for common humanity's sake all the nations on earth should embrace. Now, as there is great cause of communion, and consequently of laws, for the maintenance of communion amongst nations, so amongst nations Christian, the like in regard even of Christianity hath been always judged and needful. And in this kind of correspondence amongst nations the force of general councils doth stand. For as one and the same law divine, whereof in the next place we are to speak, is unto all Christian churches a rule for the chiefest things, by means whereof they all in that respect make one church, as having all but one Lord, one faith, and one baptism, so the urgent necessity of mutual communion for preservation of our unity in these things, as also for order in some other things convenient to be everywhere uniformly kept, maketh it requisite that the Church of God here on earth have her laws of spiritual commerce between Christian nations, laws by virtue whereof all churches may enjoy freely the use of those reverend, religious, and sacred consultations which are termed councils general. A thing whereof God's own blessed Spirit was the author, a thing practised by the holy apostles themselves, a thing always afterwards kept and observed throughout the world, a thing never otherwise than most highly esteemed of, till pride, ambition, and tyranny began by factious and vile endeavours to abuse that divine intention unto the furtherance of wicked purposes. But as the just authority of civil courts and parliaments is not therefore to be abolished, because sometimes there is cunning used to frame them according to the private intents of men over potent in the commonwealth, so the grievous abuse which hath been of councils should rather cause men to study how so gracious a thing may again be reduced to that first perfection, than in regard of stains and blemishes, since growing, be held forever in extreme disgrace. To speak of this matter as the cause requireth would require very long discourse. All I will presently say is this, whether it be for the finding out of anything whereunto divine law bindeth us, but yet in such sort that men are not thereof on all sides resolved, or for touching the setting down of some uniform judgment to stand touching such things, as being neither ways matters of necessity, are notwithstanding offensive and scandalous, when there is open opposition about them, be it for the ending of strife touching matters of Christian belief, wherein the one part may seem to have probable cause of dissenting from the other, or be it concerning matters of polity, order, and regiment in the Church, I nothing doubt but that Christian men should better frame themselves to those heavenly precepts which our Lord and Saviour with so great instancy gave, as concerning peace and unity, if we did all concur in desire to have the use of ancient councils again renewed, rather than these proceedings continued, which either make all contentions endless, or bring them to one only determination, and that of all other the worst, which is by the sword. It followeth therefore that a new foundation being laid, we now adjoin hereunto, that which cometh in the next place to be spoken of, namely, wherefore God hath himself by Scripture made known such laws as serve for direction of men. End of section 10.